I haven't had a reception like this since I was in the Air Force. When I was inducted in the Air Force, I'd walk in, everyone was supposed to stand up. It always made me feel funny. It makes me feel funny now also. I understand all of you people here have had the source of davening with the Rebbe Shlita this morning while he was at the Omid. And of course you all know the reason why you were davening with the Rebbe this morning. It's because our Rebbetzin, not only his Rebbetzin, but our Rebbetzin was nifter. Her neshama went back to Shemayim, went back to Olam HaEmes exactly 3 years ago. And I say exactly 3 years ago. It was 3 years ago today. In other words, it was Tuesday night. I was with her. It was the fourth day of the week, and it was Chof days, which it is today, of course. But also, it wasn't only the same day, and it was the same day 3 years ago as it is now. It also was the same parsha. Now, I'm sure everyone here, all our Beth Rivka girls know which parsha it is. It's Parshas Mishpatim. Now, if you start counting in the parsha, you'll see that Parshas Mishpatim in the Torah is the 18th parsha of all the parshas in the Torah. In other words, Bereshis is 1, and Noach is 2, and Lech Lecha, and so forth. 1, 2, 3, and you come up to 18. Now 18, anyone know what 18 represents to us? What letter? What? Chai, right. And so, Chai is life. So, and today we're hoping for an elevation of the neshama of Rebbetzin, Chaya Mushka, our Rebbetzin. In this parsha, we also know that we're given the laws of life. In other words, we're not just put into life without instructions. Thank God Hashem has given the Jewish people instructions of how to live our life. And this is the parsha we have the instructions in, at least the instructions that we understand, that were given to reason. So, on this parsha we're told, so this is the parsha of life. And who can represent life more than our Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka? Who could tell us how to live our lives more than Chaya, Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka? And this is the Parsha's Chai, the Parsha of life. So it's no coincidence that everything happens by a shkafa pratis. It's no coincidence that Rebbetzin passed away in this Parsha. Now, I just wanted to read a little poem to you about the Parsha because it meant something to me. It said, with so many laws, and this parsha is just loaded with all sorts of dinim. With so many laws, this parsha is hard to cover in so few days. But whatever you remember will help you later in many, many ways. Now, as I said, the Rebbetzin was the one who represented life to us and kind of gave us a direction in life. Showed us she was like the royal, she was the queen, the one who many of us should try to emulate. Now, throughout school, while you're here in Beis Rivka, your teachers are always going to be telling you, you got to daven with kavana, you got to dress with tznius, you got to have good midos. But the thing is, what does that mean to you? If you saw it, the teachers passed out a piece of paper to you and said, you got to have good midos, got to be nice, and got to dress with tznius. Unless the teachers gave you an example themselves of how they're living the life, of how they're doing it, you wouldn't even know how to begin. And this is where the Rebbetzin herself came in. The Rebbetzin really gave us the example of how to live these laws. Now, as I read in this little poem, you have to try, but sometimes there's so many laws that you just can't always, it seems overwhelming. But you just try to remember as much as you can, do whatever you can, and in many ways in the future it's going to help you very much. The Rebbetzin lived her life in full support of the Rebbe. I was trying to find my notes here, but I guess I'll have to deviate from my notes since I can't even read them myself. Let me just give you a few stories or a few examples that will probably mean more to you than the few things I wrote down. A couple of years ago, I was also asked to speak about the Rebbetzin, and because of my special relationship with her, I had to be sure I didn't reveal any confidences that might have gone on between friend to friend or patient to doctor. So I spoke to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe told me that he felt it was time to say things about the Rebbetzin now. And the reason he wanted us to say things about the Rebbetzin was so that she could actually serve as an example of the modesty and dignity that is supposed to be the essence of every Jewish woman. So let me give you a few examples of things that did occur. I first met the Rebbetzin when the Rebbe became sick in Tufshin Lamed Tes. That was several years ago. Many of you were quite young at that time. And what happened was the Rebbe didn't feel well, and every night after we stabilized the acute situation, every night my job was to come. I would come at 2 in the morning and sit with the Rebbe and monitor him from 2 in the morning to 8 in the morning. Now during that whole night, the Rebbetzin would come down at frequent intervals. She'd want to ask me how the Rebbe's doing. She would go into the Rebbe. She'd sit by his bedside. She'd talk with him for a while, and sometimes just sit there. And during those times, we would also speak. That meant she was up all day and she was up all night also, because she was serving. She just wanted to be with her husband. She, you might say, served him with devotion, but also at the same time, she didn't try to. I mean, she did give him the support. She didn't. She could have had lots of cover. If she went out on Kingston Avenue, she probably would have been surrounded. If she walked into any store, everyone would have given her all the cover in the world. She wanted to support her husband, though, because if you think of it, she actually gave her husband to us. In fact, let me read a little poem. This is just an excerpt of a poem that appeared in the Moshe Journal shortly after the Rebbetzin was nifter. And then I'll explain it as we go along. As the years of devotion and sacrifice, hours alone, this was now her life. She gave her husband to us. To her it was a must. In other words, she was the one who encouraged her husband to actually take the job as Rebbe. It's a very hard job. The Rebbe, as you know, works day and night. And therefore, the Rebbetzin spent many, many hours by herself. And on nights when everyone else was asleep, whether it was Shabbos or Yontov, or even in the middle of the week, she would wait for her husband with an open ear, and she would say, "Tell me, I'm listening, let me hear." She would speak to the Rebbe. It was interesting to see how almost every night about 7 o'clock, the Rebbe would always come home, and they would sit down to dinner together, and the Rebbetzin was sure to be there. She wasn't offered a meeting somewhere. She wasn't doing anything else. She knew that she wanted to give her husband the support. She wanted to be with her husband. They set the table beautifully. They spoke together. They were. It was a beautiful thing to watch. And this, of course, is an example for us. And then there were then on Shabbos and Yontov, of course, or especially Shabbos, there were many times that she was in the library alone, waiting for hours, or at home alone. And many of those times I would go to visit with her, just to talk and just to see how things were going. It says, her home was permeated with a brilliant light. Never was there dust in sight. Never was anything out of place. Alas, Your Majesty's home was really a palace. Was their palace. Well, it was a palace. She was an excellent housekeeper also. There wasn't a thing out of place in her home. And we all knew when we walked in there that we wanted to be as neat and clean and leave the place just as neat and clean as when we found it. The light that we spoke of in her house, when you walked into her house, it was almost like being face to face with the Rebbe. It's not a light from the lights, Hashmol or electric lights or daylight. It seemed to be a very bright light. Maybe you were just imagining it, but it seemed to be like the light of the Or, the light that was just a different kind of light, and seemed to fill us all, and everyone who went there was touched by the same thing. Visitors by the dozen, a most gracious hostess was she. Her time was set aside exclusively for me. She had many people come to visit her. Many people your age were there visiting her also. But every time, no matter how many people she had, she seemed to give her whole attention to everybody. In other words, each person was made to feel very, very important. If the children came in, people younger than you, she'd always be sure she had some candy there. She would always be sure she had some fruit, and she would even take time to play with children. She loved children. In fact, to her, to the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin, all of the Hasidim were really their children. You know, many times people say, oh yeah, I never saw the Rebbetzin. I don't even know who she is. She didn't know me. It's not true. I spent a lot of time with the Rebbetzin, and the Rebbetzin knew all the Hasidim. I was always surprised to see that she never walked out of her house, but she seemed to know the inner feelings and the thoughts of all of us. It was something that just transcended the usual natural bounds. I couldn't figure it out, but she always seemed to know what was going on. I never knew how. Very similar to the way the Rebbe does it also. When I approached her on this a few times, she just kind of played it down, but at the same time, I was always amazed by it. To some extent, the Rebbe called her a cardiologist. I called her a psychologist. The reason was she seemed to feel the inner feelings of your hearts, and she didn't talk to you every day. I know some of the girls in the Chon Kana also told me, and some of the girls from Beis Rivka, you know, we made projects, we sent them over to the Rebbetzin, and did she see it? Did she know it? Did she know about it? I can just assure you that on several occasions, she took me into a room and showed me the different things that were made either by the girls in Beis Rivka, or some of the girls in Macon, or some of the other mostos in Lubavitch. And she knew who gave it, she knew what it meant, she was very proud of it. So she was your Rebbetzin, she is your Rebbetzin, she's the example of what we're supposed to be as women, especially Jewish women. A few other just quick examples of how this lady, this Rebbetzin, cared for all of us. I know for me personally, she always made sure I walked out with a coat on. Even in the middle of the winter, many times if I'm in a hurry, I don't have time to put on a coat. But I knew if I was going to drive past her house, I didn't have to go in. All I had to do was drive past. I knew she was going to be looking to see if I had a coat on. In fact, if I didn't, she might call me up later and bawl me out. Why didn't you have your coat on today? Because it was cold. So many times I put a coat on just to at least go past the house. And after that, then I was on my own. I remember another time there was she felt so much for all of us. Remember another time she had a little sore on her foot, and I brought her a blow dryer over for her. You know, something you normally dry your hair with. We wanted to just dry the sore up a little bit, and it was near the end of the week. She kept it a day or two, and then she insisted I take it back. In fact, I didn't want it, but she sent it back because she said she knows that whatever young girl owned this blow dryer might need it Erev Shabbos. So she said, you've got to take it back. I had no choice. She sent it right back to me. Even though I knew she still needed it. So, again, what we're dealing with now, so we have the prime example. Again, we're dealing, this is the parsha of life. Everything is Shvat Pratis. She passed away on this parsha. By the way, if you even add up, I was talking to Rabbi Goldstein, Uncle Yossi, just recently, and he adds up the fact that if you add up the letters in Chaya Mushka and you add up and take the month that she was nifter, and if we put all of that together, it comes out to the same gematria as the Baal Shem Tov. So not only did she have a good name, but she was really the prime example to us of how to live our lives during this living parsha, the parsha of life, the 18th parsha, Parshas Mishpatim. She was really the queen of modesty, the queen of dignity, demonstrated the essence of what a Jewish woman's supposed to be, and we all miss her very much. Personally, people who actually knew her are going to her Akiva today, and those who knew her speak about her very frequently. And as I said, we feel like we're still living with her because all of you should feel she is still your Rebbetzin. That's the way she would want it. Thank you.